Yes, we will. Okay. Hello, my name is Sondra Peron. I'm associate professor at Springfield Technical Community College and gallery coordinator at the Amy H. Carberry Fine Arts Gallery located in Building 28. The Carberry Gallery at STCC strives to foster intellectual engagement and dialogue beyond the traditional classroom by breaking preconceived notions of a gallery as an exclusive space. One function of the gallery is to share who artists and photographers are and what they create, in order to inspire students to pursue their own creative endeavors and career goals. Fine arts courses are open to everyone here at STCC, and the importance of visual literacy to every student's overall educational experience cannot be understated, no matter their major. I originally conceived of these virtual Carberry Conversation interviews in response to the pandemic, with each interview covering a wide variety of topics, including origin stories, the impact of current events on artistic practice, and the function of art and photography during times of crisis. I continue to offer this virtual format since we reach a much wider audience across the globe, while creating an archive of these conversations available on YouTube as a resource for the STIC community to enjoy into the future. Tonight, I am thrilled to speak to Gabriella Angotti-Jones as part of Black History Month celebrations at the Carberry Gallery. Her exhibition, I Just Want to Surf, is on view through February 28th, 2023 at the Carberry Gallery. In this never-before-seen immersive exhibition of text and images, Angotti-Jones, who grew up in one of the only mixed-race Black families in small Orange County beach town, reflects on how her early relationship with the ocean and California surf culture became intertwined with her identity as a Black woman. Angotti-Jones is a freelance documentary photographer based in Los Angeles. She was previously a staff photographer at the Los Angeles Times and has worked at papers across the country, including the San Francisco Chronicle, Tampa Bay Times, Las Vegas Review Journal, and the New York Times.
Hi.
So, Gabriella, yes, welcome. So are you in California right now?
Yes, I am in California right now. I'm actually back in my hometown in Capistrano Beach / San Clemente, so visiting my family. So,
And
yeah.
how is the weather out there? I'm in Massachusetts, so
God.
it's cold. It's not snowy, but it's cold. It's February. It's kind of not very colorful out. But what is it like in California right now?
It was so nice today. It was actually literally 72 and sunny. It was a cliche. It was so nice. I actually got hot. It was wonderful.
Did you go surfing?
No, I didn't. I chose to chill today and see my family, but I surfed last week and it was so cold. It was so
the water was so
so cold. February is our coldest month, and that's when everyone quits surfing, is in February.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what brings you out there in February then to surf? Like better waves or?
No, not necessarily. I think it's just being consistent and I'm trying. So I just started shortboarding and I'm trying to go to Bali later this year. So I'm trying to get really good on my shortboard before I go to Bali. Just because, and also I'm psycho and super competitive with myself. So I like to I'm I don't know, I like doing that and psyching myself out and being crazy. So yeah.
So I want to start a couple of images with you. I have to back up a little bit. So I first heard about your work from Ben Brody.
Yeah.
At Mass Books. Yes, Ben Brody. Back in 2020 or 2021. I'm not exactly sure, but it was somewhere around that time. And he had mentioned your work and he's like, I know this photographer whose work you really might like. And I was like, oh, okay. And then pandemic hits and things are happening and it's all crazy. And then I followed up with him and I said, so you told me about this photographer, but what's going on? And he's like, oh yeah, we're publishing a book. And I'm like, when were you going to tell me that you were publishing this book? It was so funny.
So funny. That sounds like Ben.
Yes. So can you tell me a little bit of the backstory into how this book came into being?
I think I mean, it started when I was little and I stopped surfing because it was too much for me to process, just because I think just a bunch of reasons. Like my family was going through a lot. Like I was going through a lot with realizing that I was Black. Like I think just being a preteen is a lot, especially in like, early 2000s, when like that was very common to like hate women and hate women's bodies. And like, especially like as like a young Black girl or mixed race person, it's just like not conducive to that. So I think that is where it started, and just like creating this like big, it feels like kind of like this ball of just like tension within me that I could never really unpack. And that has followed me, and I've always drawn from that. And it wasn't until like I was honestly did enough therapy and was ready to do it that I started realizing like, oh, I really want to start like unpacking the reason why I feel this way. And like that's obviously depression. And I'm telling you this like I knew, but like I did not know. I was like confused, and like I just wanted to take pictures for myself. And I think that's how it manifested. And so I started for like over a course of 3 years. I started in 2019 to about like 2021. I was just photographing like different surfers I would find on social media, and then like through other friends and through like word of mouth and stuff like that. And at one point I photographed a what is it called, a Black Lives Matter rally at the beach, which I had never seen before and I was freaking out about. And I went, and literally me and my four other friends at the time were like the only Black surfers there, it felt like.
Yeah.
And my pictures, I ended up posting my pictures on Instagram, and it went viral in the surf community, which was really crazy. And I was getting like all my favorite surfers and like photographers like liking my stuff, and I was like, this is nuts. And then Ben reached out, and he like CC'd Peter Van Axel on an email, and he was like, hey, this is a book, like this is a book. Especially with the caption I wrote, I just wrote about how like I was like, this has never happened. Like surfing has a history of racism, like surf Nazis are a real thing. Like, so like, I think he was just like, this is a book. So that's how it happened. Long story short.
I was just going to say, you made that long story very short, because I think there's a lot more that happened in there. There's a lot more that happened in there. So let's unpack some of that, because here's the exhibition. Now we've like realized it as like, right? Like
it's so cool.
Actually on the walls now.
Yeah.
So in late August of last year, 3 of my new gallery work studies at STCC, they took on this project with me to study your book, study your work. Like they really got into it, reading the text, and like there's like 14 or 15 pages of text in within your book that we had to like sort of carefully like unpack together and figure out, like, from over 100 images, what were we going to print, and how are we going to like turn a book into an exhibition, and that's what they did. That's what they did. And it's kind of amazing to see that transformation, from all these different, and I can't imagine what it's like for you, because you're like, hey, I took these pictures over this number of years and I never imagined that they would become this. And then,
Yeah.
So what is it like seeing your work now on a gallery wall as well? Like, so it's in book form, it's on the wall. What is it like?
It's pretty wild. I mean, this thing I never thought would be a book. I never thought people would see it. I really thought I would be working on this for at least like 10 more years. Because my original goal was to get like a really wide swath of people and a really wide swath of my friends' lives, and literally have them like having kids and like getting married and like showing them at their everyday jobs. Because like my friends are sick. Like my one friend Olga is an ER doctor. Like it's just like, and they do such cool things. And my other friend Lizelle is like an action sports athlete and does like these like ultra marathon like triathlon races. It's like nuts. So I wanted that, but I think Ben was like, yo, like this has an end date. You should just get this work out. It's timely now. So
yeah.
Not to go off on a tangent, but yeah, so it's crazy. And also at the same time, I don't think I'm really registering it, but at the same time, like it's really cool to hear how people are connecting to the story. And connecting to the images because like I was literally just taking pictures of my life and not really thinking much of it
Yeah.
until like I kind of started like putting the book together and realizing that a lot of this was about depression, which is like kind
Mhm.
of embarrassing to say, but also I think is really funny because like I don't know, the pictures are so joyous, but they come from such a dark place.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, and to hear that people are picking up on the tones of depression and kind of the narrative between depression and like elation and like embedding like one's own experiences in others is like
Mhm.
that's what's really cool to me. And like I think for me, like I mean, I think it's wonderful that it's like a bunch of Black women and non-binary people, but like I'm more proud of the fact that it's about depression because like especially relating to like Black people because like we don't really get a lot of leeway like within our own networks and like in society to really address mental health.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel most proud about that, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, and that's really important. Like, and I think that comes through in your work. And that's one of the tensions we were trying to strike with the
Yeah.
exhibition, right? Is like having images, like you said, are really joyous and really raucous, and then juxtaposing that against this darker side, right? That you express in the text, where you're saying like, I am depressed, or this is happening, or this is dark, or I'm
Yeah.
experiencing these moments of racism and sexism, and this is how it's making me feel. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't make me feel good
Yeah.
about myself. And then like the
Yeah.
goal, right?
Yeah.
So, and but I also feel like through this work, you're overcoming something, right? You're overcoming a lot of these obstacles that people have placed.
Thank you. Trying to.
Well, but it's ongoing, right?
Yeah, forever and ever and ever and ever and ever.
So Eddie, Anaya, and Simba and I, we had to parse out some of this text, and we actually applied some of your words from the book to the gallery walls. So I'm going to just read one of these sections. This is one of the opening sections of the gallery. I remember standing up on the board for the very first time when I was little. I remember feeling a whoosh. I stood up. It felt like I was sliding. It was a very small wave. Then you go on in the book and you say, I saw everything come together in a mix of waves and the sun, birds, and people. It just made sense, the vibe of my neighbors and friends. It was overwhelming to be so present in that moment and really soak it in. You bring people like right in. How did you do that?
Um, I think a lot with the help of my book editor, Deborah Artman. Shout out to Deborah. She's
Mhm.
amazing.
Mhm.
Um, I was really fortunate that she said that there was a lot to work with, and she just wanted me to be as descriptive as possible. And I think also I think being a photographer, I think we notice things, we notice like very small details, and I think we translate those details into images and storytelling. Well, that's at least what I do. So I think, there's that aspect. And then also like Barbarian Days, the book, have you read it?
No, no.
It's by William Finnegan
Mhm.
and it won a Pulitzer
Mhm.
and it's amazing. And at face value, it's like about like this white guy who talks about his surfing life and traveling and realizing he's kind of problematic. And you're like, that's kind of a dumb story. But then like the way he wrote it and the realizations he was making and the way he describes waves and just kind of the emotion of surfing is like freaking beautiful and brilliant and so relatable. And it's like, it's so hard to talk about anything metaphysical and like make it relatable. And like,
Mhm. Mhm.
that really inspired me. I mean, just think of like every viral video you've seen of surfer, and it's always like a guy and a like who's wet and like a wetsuit being like, and it was like whoop pow and kablam, and it's like, yeah, that's exactly what it's like. But it's like
Yeah.
it's a bunch of things at once, and I think that's what makes it such a powerful experience. It's literally like everything happening all at the same time.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Can you talk about this picture?
I think my mom took this picture of me. So I like we joke that like my
Right.
mom is a published author because she My mom is like a really good photographer. She like can't use her iPhone at all, but like with her little Canon PowerShot, she's like shooting. I'm like,
Yeah,
dang girl. Okay.
yeah.
But yeah, so this is my mom grew up in East LA in Whittier, and in an Italian immigrant family, and would vacation down in South Orange County before it was so developed, in Dana Point, San Clemente, and Laguna Beach, and always felt that like if she was able to live by the beach, she would have made it.
Mhm.
And so that was this part of the world was really important to her. So she would like, and the beach was like really important to her, I think.
Mhm.
And so like she would bring me to the beach all the time just because she liked going. And I would try to run into the water. I'd just like book it. And she'd be like, stop, please. Don't die.
Like, how
So
old are you in the
um
picture? Like 3?
I think so. I think I was
Or-
surprised. This is when we still lived in LA, because when we lived in LA until I was like 5, I think.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that was then. And I would, kids like to dig holes, so I'm digging a hole.
When
So
did you first pick up a camera?
I don't know. I remember picking up my mom's camera when I was little and taking pictures a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember I got a Barbie camera at one point.
Oh,
I
wow.
just always had cameras and I was always using them, but it didn't really like, I didn't connect to it at all, which I think is so funny until like I was in high school and I like was in a yearbook class and I was like really into it. And my sister, not my mom, my sister actually made a point that I've been making books since I was little, because like I literally made my high school yearbook. I was like art director. And then like I would make books around like all the time and like write stories and make books and then just like leave them around the house.
Mhm.
And so I think like it's always been there, but it wasn't until like high school that I really started that I wanted to be a photographer.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah.
So you started surfing 9, 10, 11. Like when was the first time you went surfing?
I think first time I surfed, I was 8.
Oh,
And
okay.
then I surfed pretty consistently 8, 9, like 10. And
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
kind of started tapering off. And by the time I was like 12, I was like not really surfing as much
Done
anymore.
with it. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
when was the next time that you went surfing after that?
When I was like 12.
After, like, when you were younger, you stopped, right? You just stopped.
Yeah, I stopped. I think I went when I was like 20, like 19, 20 once.
Mhm.
And I was like, not, I was like, this is cold. And then I was in the right headspace. And then not until I went to Hawaii with my friends in 2019 to at first photograph. And then I ended up surfing a couple times and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I realized that I liked surfing more than I started taking pictures. And then I was like, oh, wait, I need to figure this out before I finish this project. Otherwise, I'm just going to surf and not do anything. But
Right.
usually I can complete things when I start things. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you started surfing again. And one of the interesting things I find about this body of work too is that you were using Polaroid, you were
Yeah.
using film, like what talk about that. What what were you thinking
There
about?
was a lot
You're
going on.
using all these different like formats, like
Um, I was really inspired by 90s skate and surf photography and style of storytelling, which have you ever heard of Big Brother?
no.
It was this magazine that was made in El Segundo that was like originally the Jackass crew.
Okay.
And they made this magazine and it was so offensive and
Oh,
honestly just like freaking awful. But it was really funny and it was literally like it was revolutionary in the fact that it was just showing skateboarding for what it was, which was just like a bunch of dudes like partying,
mhm,
skateboarding, being bloody, little inside jokes. And
mhm,
like I grew up with that.
yeah.
And then also like looking at like Trans World and like other like surfer and like all these other magazines and like watching surf videos and just seeing how it was a really mixed media just to kind of show and just was really visual and vibrant and
Mhm.
um yeah, so I think that was a really big part of it. And then also like inserting my friends in that narrative and visualizing us in that style, I thought was really important. Also because like I was trying to figure out what I was doing. So I was just experimenting with a bunch of different formats. And I love 90s style things in early 2000s. And so I was using a lot of 90s and Y2K cameras.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that's
Well, because there is that moment, like, around the late 90s, early 2000s, where film and digital sort of, there's a bridge, right? And
yeah,
a lot of people cross the bridge to
yeah,
digital.
yeah,
But one of the things I love about some of your images is like that grain, like that authentic film grain, right?
yeah.
And the Polaroids, right? Anaya, one of our gallery work studies, like she just loves your Polaroids.
Oh, thank
Because there's
you.
like this, there's things wrong with them, right? There's
Yeah.
like, I don't know, what would you say, like expired film? What happened with some of
There's
those?
a lot going on. The Polaroid camera's broken,
Okay,
so it would only work half the time, and there was like light leaks, and it's
yeah,
just like a mess. But I like that because it's
yeah,
like edgy and punk, and like I love punk music. I love hardcore music. Like I love that. Like also like yeah, punk and hardcore stuff and aesthetic is like hugely in this.
yeah.
And then and like zines, especially like punk zines, like especially the flyers that you'd like see on like the streets of San Francisco or LA, like all that stuff, New York.
Mhm, mhm.
So like all of that, and then yeah, I don't know, and then just like expired film. There's a lot of expired film happening, a lot of missed focus,
Yeah.
a lot of just messed up. But I was like, you know what? It adds to it. Like whatever, send
Yeah, yeah.
it.
Well,
It's
so
like,
one of the
oh
go
sorry.
go
Oh,
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just gonna say this whole project was to have fun for me because like my mental capabilities were just like shot. So I was just like, let's do whatever and make myself happy.
Yeah. So while you were making this work, though, over a number of years, you were working as a photographer, right? A staff photographer, right? So like
Yeah.
you're doing this work. Did at the time, did you think this was going to be something else? Or was it really just like a fun side hustle? Like, I'm just gonna take my Polaroid camera to the beach with my friends. I don't really care what comes out. Like, just let's see what happens.
I mean, I don't think I'm the kind of person that can do anything for fun. Like I think I'm like a very intentional and intense person. So like I whenever I commit to something, I like go pretty hard. So like I was doing it for fun, but I was doing it in a really like intense way where I was shooting a lot and doing a
Mhm.
lot. And I was like really protective of it. Like I was showing the work to people, but I was like, it's not going anywhere. I don't know where it's gonna go. And they were like, what? I need to publish this. I remember like when I was at the LA Times, I had one of the editors was like, can we publish this? Like, please just let us publish this. And I was like, no, like this is not meant for that, you guys. Like, this is not a commodity. This is my life. And
Mhm. Mhm.
like I had enough mentors who were just like, yo, just don't sell this, don't license it, just like don't do anything with it,
Yeah.
which not enough people talk about. So I
Mhm.
think once I started noticing that people like older white men mostly who were like just super newsy were like, this is a story, I was like, oh wow, okay, so this is different.
Right. So maybe there's something there, right? Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, this is not just my friends like thinking it's cool. It's like a different generation and demographic of people, which I was like, okay, that's sick. Yeah, like
Mhm.
that has meaning. That's cool.
Right. So one of the things that we did at the Carberry was we only took 19 images to actually print because we have limited wall space, and you took so many pictures for the book. I'm sure that's just a fraction of what was published in the book. There's over 100 images in the book. We actually took the balance of those images and we projected them on the back wall.
Mhm.
So there's a constant rotation of images and ocean. You can hear the ocean in the like sort of going throughout the gallery. So when you walk in, you're just like, you either need to go to the bathroom or you need to go swimming. I don't know which. Like you
That's
just
awesome.
feel like you're in it. Like you really
Yeah.
feel like you're in it.
Yeah.
And for many people, myself included, I've never surfed. I don't know what it's like, but
Yeah.
make me want to.
Oh, that's
Me-
the nicest thing I think anyone has ever said.
It's true. You make me really want to try to do
It's
this.
so
I'm like,
fun.
wow, it looks like fun. It really does.
It's
So
like
when I come to California,
Yeah.
I hope, I can just like lie on a board because I won't be able to stand, but because I'll just
Honestly,
fall in the water.
honestly, I can barely stand sometimes. Like, I don't know. It's just like it's the most distraught, fun slash awful sport because it's
Right,
just like it doesn't work half the time. So
right. But it seems like you capture so much joy and you capture so much, I don't know, like really authentic, like people really being present on the,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And like I think especially when you visualize Black people, Black women, Black non-binary people, it's just so important to show us recreating and at peace and
Mhm,
present and as people in our bodies because like
mhm,
we don't get to feel that a lot,
mhm,
like and I remember talking to some OGs and like they were telling me OGs are like, original people, original gangsters are just like the older people
mhm,
and the
mhm,
older women and they were like I was talking to them and they were like, we don't really relate to what a lot of the young people say because they make it too much about like standing up for themselves and like being about other people and like for surfing is just for me. Like it's just my time. I
mhm.
don't care. I don't think about anything else.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
think about me. And that's like super like old school way of thinking and processing about race with racism, which, is what they needed to do. So it's just like, I don't know. I just think that's just so important. And I try to bring that to like all aspects of my work is just like there's so much like so many images of us like in pain or struggling or like, you know, just having a hard time.
Mhm,
And there's like truly not enough of us just existing and being and just like, which is also a form of resistance and a form of protest as well. And is I think is pretty freaking punk. So,
mhm.
like yeah, so that's kind of what inspired me and like
Yeah.
I just think it's super important and I will harp on it till I die.
Well, this image of Sierra here, let me grab my note
Yeah.
here. I want to get this quote right. Where is she? Sierra, where is she? One time I witnessed Sierra screeching from frustration 1 minute, then hopping on an important Zoom call for work right after, all while wearing her wetsuit. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like, the pandemic had an impact on this body of work,
Yeah, it
right?
did. Yeah,
Like
I mean, yeah,
life
yeah.
changed. So what do you think? How did the pandemic impact this for you?
I mean, I worked on this the entire pandemic because like surfing was one of the few things you could actually do, you know. And
Mm-hmm,
like I had a group of friends that we all took precautions
mm-hmm,
and were tested and we still traveled and did stuff in California together. Um
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
like honestly surfers are notoriously like we don't care about stuff like that. So which is do with that what you will. But yeah, so it's just, you know, I think that was cool because like everyone was truly together all the time. Like I
mm-hmm,
legitimately surfed with my friends at least once a week or
mm-hmm.
like 2 to 3 times a week. Like my friend Monica was going down to see my friends Danielle and Olga like 3 and 4 times a week. Like she would just drive down because there's no traffic. So she would just drive down to San Diego, go surf with them.
No.
I think like try to get barreled. I remember one day they tried to get barreled, one of them broke their boards, and then they would just like go to work after. And it was just like this really interesting time for people who could afford like and had the time and space to actually recreate.
Yeah.
And which was so interesting. And that's what really tripped me up because I remember I was working at the LA Times and I was like in hospitals, like covering civil unrest, like
Yeah.
going over to people's restaurants that they were losing and like being with people who had to educate their kids and like would have their disability benefits running out. And like my friends were just like, yeah, I got barreled, almost broke my board today. I'm on what is it called? The unemployment checks are happening. There was like, I don't know. It was just like it was just nuts. And I was like, you guys are not in reality. Like this is crazy. And then I was caught in the middle.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I I think that was a part of it. And then also, I think once the civil unrest started happening, and like, I was like, all these Black surfers came out of the woodwork. I was like, where have you guys been?
Right.
Literally, it was just like me and my friends. Like, there was like 3 or 4 of us, and we just would meet up, and like, and then like everyone started surfing, and like, because they all had the time, and it was great. It was beautiful because there's so many people trying to learn how to surf, and like, it was just amazing. And like, it's really inspiring. And then also there was a lot of like people in the industry that were feeling pressured to say stuff. And so like, I think a lot, and then I felt the need to continue to document and show and like push and show and like for everything that I experienced, and it felt incredibly validating. Um, and then on top of that, when like Peter and Ben like came to me and were like, you should publish this now because this is never going to happen again in your lifetime. And I was like, sick, noted, cool, we're doing it, we're sending it, we're finishing the book, like it's going to get done in a year. I remember I got a really well-paying commercial job, and then I quit my time at LA Times, and I devoted like a full year to just shooting this because I was like, this is really important.
Do you think of it as finished at this point?
No.
Like, okay.
Yeah, no, that's just sorry. I don't.
No, I was just I got worried. I was like, is it done?
No, I think I'm taking a break from it.
Okay.
I think time has to pass.
Yeah.
I think time has to pass. I think the next time I'll probably photograph it more seriously is when my friends start getting married and having kids. And like, I'll always photograph our surf trips, or like if there's anything novel that comes up, I will photograph it, which is what I do. Like I connected with this younger girl who's a teenager, and she's mixed race. She's Brazilian and American, and she lives in Irvine, and she surfs in San Clemente. And so I photographed her a couple times. Like, it's stuff like that, because I feel like I've at this point, like, I've photographed my friends, I've photographed everything I've needed. My bases are all covered. Now it's just all the fun stuff. It's like the seasoning. So yeah.
This is another beautiful shot. I love the light in this. It's just so gorgeous.
Thank you.
And it's like it's the antithesis of like your typical like surf shot, right? Like,
thank you.
It's just so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. I wanted to be the opposite of all of that. And I wanted to call back on like the golden era of surf photography, which was literally just a bunch of blurry images of friends, and like just like what surfing is. Like, surfing isn't like people doing cutbacks on 8-foot waves. It's like this. I don't know.
Going through a tunnel, like what is that when like they're
barrel?
Barrel, sorry.
Yeah,
barrel. I don't even know the proper, sorry.
It's basically a tunnel. Yeah.
Okay. Barrel. I just want to be able to like be on a wave and like actually like move forward without that would be I'd be happy with that.
You should do that. You should go do that. You can totally do that. That's possible.
But I mean, I think one of the reasons that this body of work is so successful though, is that you are so honest about it, you know, and you're willing to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And your friends trust you.
They do, which is wild.
I mean, they really do. They seem to trust you. They're willing to show themselves and also be present with you in this, you know. And you talk in the book about how you were taking all these pictures of all your friends, and then you didn't really take any pictures of yourself until like much later or much further into doing the series. And I mean, I think that there's benefits to like working on something over a period of time, right? Because you look at it, you get to analyze it. You're like, so what am I missing, or what am I not seeing, or what am I like, where are the gaps, you know? So, I mean, it's not just like you had only a certain amount of time to work on this. You've had time to really digest and like and work and grow with people, right? Because you're talking about like going through the pandemic and going through like post, you know, George Floyd times, and like, you know, really like getting to know people in different ways. And I mean, it seems to show in the work.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a really I feel so grateful that I had the time and space to figure out my process as a creative, because I don't think enough people, specifically photojournalists, do that. And like, I don't know if I think it was just such a good way to understand how I think and how I work, and the things that I like to talk about and the things I like to photograph and how I photograph them and how I get to that place of understanding I need to photograph something. So like it was all of that. And now I feel like if I'm put on, like, I'm going to Ghana in like 3 weeks for a couple of weeks to work on this project on shark fisheries. And like I now know, because I've gone through this process, I know what I want to photograph. I know how I like to, I know all these things. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm so grateful. I'm just like, I'm so glad we did this. Like, it's just so great.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And then going back to what you said about like me being really honest, I think it's really funny people always say that, because like, I don't know. I think as like a depressed person, like I don't really know any other way to be other than to talk about my experience, because like that's my reality. So like, I don't know, it's like weird because like I can't talk about my life without talking about it. And like it's so normal to me that I just don't even recognize that it's like it has an impact, I guess. So it's kind of weird to me because like I don't know, being suicidal what at one point was like really normal for me, so I'm not trying to minimize, but like it's weird. It's really weird. It's weird.
But there is a way in which, Gabriella, that you, by talking about it now or through your work, you're able to help other people.
Thank you. Yeah.
And that is really what's important, right? It's like many of us have been in very dark days and dark times.
Yeah.
And how do you get through those days? Or how do and sometimes it's friends and sometimes it's family and
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And like this whole thing is so interesting because like literally I am processing this in real time. Like this is all very real. Like even sometimes when I'm doing interviews, I'm like realizing things and I'm like, oh shit, what? But yeah, and like that's what I realized was like, yo, my depression was definitely cured because like my friends helped me realize I had value.
Yes, right.
And like looking, and like that makes me so emotional. Like I realized that like when I got a copy of the book, I like sat through it and read it physically, and I just like cried because I was like, oh my god, my friends love me and now I love myself. And it was like dramatic and kind of silly, but it was like real. I was like, oh my god, I literally like gave myself a hobby, gave myself a task, like gave myself a purpose, realized that like they felt value in me and they saw something in me. And then I was like, wait, how? And then they were like, no, gee, because you're sick, like you're awesome. Like, and I was like, oh wait, I am. Yeah. So, and I think like when I took that portrait of myself, I was in the process of realizing that. And like when I took the picture, I thought I was like, I looked powerful and all like, eh. And then like I looked at it, and when I got it developed, I was like, oh my God, I looked so depressed. That's so funny. Like I was like, you can't run from it, girl. Just gonna follow you. So it's
No, I think you say somewhere in the book where you're like, I don't mean to be dramatic, but my friends saved my life.
They did. They literally
so you're just like, that's your experience. Like,
yeah, they literally did. And like I tell them that all the time. And now I feel like, I mean, I am so protective of them from that. It's so weird. Like this whole process has made me like so attached to my friends and like loving them, and like I'm tearing up now because I just like literally love them so much because I've had to like look at them through like a viewfinder so much, and like I watch them, and like just I don't know, it's just really impactful to me. So yeah.
Well, I mean, and it's inspiring. It's really inspiring what you're doing, and that's why I feel so lucky to have the opportunity to share your work at our community college, because there's a lot of young people out there feeling very similarly.
Yeah, especially at community college. Like,
yeah,
I went to community college.
Working, people are juggling a lot of things, and
yeah, it's a lot of transitions.
There's been a lot going on in the world.
Yeah, but like, I also think like on the community college note, I think like the people who have done the most in the world, like are the people who went to community college. Like just straight up. Like, 'cause, I don't know, I'm busy, and you have if you go to community college, you have to have follow through and be able to get things done. Like,
Yes, you do.
so
Yes.
it's like,
Tasking. It's the master of multitask. Yeah.
yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So if I was to ask you, like, what would you say to a community college student, like, in terms of advice, what advice would you give?
oh my God, I don't know. It's almost funny because I feel like every community college student is like so on there. Like some of them are like so on, like they have their job, they have their family, they have they like have it. Like I would just say like go to therapy, make time for yourself. Like
Yeah.
like I
Keep going.
literally I literally gave myself mono because I was doing like science classes in the morning and the night, and I had played soccer in the middle of the day, and I literally gave myself mono. So like, don't give yourself mono, like slow down, like go get some therapy, like,
Yeah.
yeah, just like get help and like create a plan, a care plan. It's hard. It's so hard. Like, and just like, I think anything that you need to do to make yourself realize that you have value in it's just so important.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
This is one of
yeah.
the Polaroids that Anaya and I were talking about the other day. I love this. I love it. Like this giant pink surfboard and this an equally big smile, like
Yes. I'm
it's
trying to think.
just charming.
What's her name? Is it? I'm blanking on her name. I know her name. I literally talk to her all the time. I'm like overwhelmed right now, but yeah, she's one of the Rockaway surfers, and her family runs La Ubea in Rockaway. Yeah, she's amazing. It's really funny because like I photographed La Ubea right as they were starting, right? Like literally the day before I was leaving New York. And I've literally photographed these girls since they were like 14 years old, and now they're in their 20s.
Mhm, mhm.
And it's just like, I don't know. It's so cool. She's like, they rip, they're so good. And like, it's just been so cool to watch them grow up. And like, yeah, I don't know. She's very much like that.
Mhm.
I think her name's
What's
Adanya.
next?
Adanya is her name.
What's next? What's next in this series? Do you see this? Because you said like you're not done taking pictures, but
No.
you've come out with this book. I forgot to mention, and I didn't mean to forget, but I did forget. Um, this book was out of over 1,000 books produced last year. It was shortlisted for the Paris Photo Aperture Photo Book Award, which is very prestigious. Okay. And
Thank
getting
you.
shortlisted means like only 35 out of it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And yours is one of them.
It
That,
did. I was so happy for that.
that's awesome.
Thank you.
What do you do after that? After that, like, do you come out with another book? Do you just, does that validate you? And you're like, I can just go and do my work now. I can just work. I can just be a
Yeah.
photographer. I'm a photojournalist. This is what I am. It's validating for sure. But I just
Yeah.
wonder how else you feel. Like where do you see yourself in like 10 years? Will we be talking, and will you remember this conversation in 10
Yes,
years?
I'm literally remember this conversation. Stop.
You know, what do you imagine? What do you imagine for yourself?
I literally just want I just want to surf. Um I Yeah, no, I want to be surfing. I want to be doing commercial work. I want to be doing
Mhm,
high-paying jobs, honestly, and then take time off to
mhm,
surf, and then
yeah,
do long form assignments abroad,
mhm,
specifically relating to the ocean, oceanic communities, climate change, and different like just instances of environmental injustice and environmental racism around the world. I really want to do that, specifically relating to the oceans,
mhm.
and start specifically focusing on work in the US around that kind of stuff, which I feel like the surfer work is a really great jumping point from that. Um, yeah, and just keep telling ocean stories and like getting really good at shortboarding. Like I really want to do a roundhouse cutback. In 10 years, if I'm not doing that, like I don't want to surf anymore. um, what else? Yeah. So I like going back to parody photo, like I just really wanted honestly, I just really want to piss off the surf industry. And I really just want them to know that they're so obsolete, no one cares anymore. And I will go on the record saying that. because I don't care. And like, they don't like, I the way that they treat athletes is ridiculous. And I just wanted to put surfing on a level where they can just have to pay attention to it and understand that like surfing's changing. The face of it is Black women, is gays, is trans people, is non-binary
Good.
people.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
I don't get fucked. Like
Yeah.
literally, like that's exactly my feelings on making the short list. Like,
I think you just dropped the mic. Yes.
So yeah, because like I don't know, like it's cool. I just want to keep taking pictures and creating a life for myself that's like sustainable and like yeah. So
Well, Gabriella, I can't thank you enough
thank
for
you.
sharing this work, for sharing your life, for sharing your experiences with us, not only at Stick, but just globally through this book. There were a lot of people involved in this at Stick, so I just have to put up my thank yous, but I mostly need to thank you, because without you, without this work, we wouldn't have had this amazing opportunity. So, and I am certain that you are going to go on to do more great and wonderful things. And I really, really look forward to following your career as you go forward. I really do.
Thank you. You're gonna make me cry. I
Oh, don't
appreciate
cry
you.
again. Don't cry again. Don't cry.
This happens every time. Like
No,
I
but
think it's just the work. It makes everyone really emotional.
it does.
So
It does.
everyone's like,
It really does. So, you made me cry when I was reading it, and now I get to make you cry. So,
oh,
but I really want to thank you. It's been just such a joy. I really enjoyed it. I
thank
really.
you. And thank you to everyone who worked on this. I really appreciate everyone.
I've been trying to convey all of that as like, because this list is just a short list, but yes, it's been amazing. It's been really, really.
Yeah, and I understand this is like not an easy read. So like I really appreciate anyone taking the time to dissect it. Like it's
yeah. It's been.
Thank you.
All right. Well, good luck with going to Ghana and Bali and wherever else 2023 brings you.
Thank you.
And stay in touch.
Of course.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.